Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about the prelude to the Battle of the Trebia. I'm going to be talking about the characters involved and a really important dynamic that was, shall we say, ticking away in the background. Just to recap, in 218 BC, in late autumn, early winter, Hannibal had descended into the Celtic northern region of what is modern-day Italy. He crossed the Alps and he had around 20,000 infantry and 8,000 cavalry. And his main problem wasn't Rome. It was, in fact, keeping on side with the Celts. As you can see here, they dominated this region. This wasn't Romanized by any standards. And in fact, Rome had been making some sort of incursions northwards, but they'd met with fierce resistance. Now, what he does is he's already tried to secure some alliances, and he's done that prior to possibly even leaving Cartagena. He's thought that far ahead because you can't just turn up and hope that everyone's happy with you being there. So what he does initially is he makes war against the Taurini, and you can see them up there. He's moved across the Alps into that region, and he does that because they're at war, or they're enemies, rivals of the Insubres, which are an important Celtic tribe. So straight away he's trying to demonstrate his worth and what he can do for the Celts. And he takes the capital of the Taurini, which is thought to be Turin, and therefore has made a first good impression on the Celts as being a military force, because after all, they're backing him to be able to join him in order to beat up Romans, which is pretty much all the Celts ever want to do. And as for Rome, well, it's fair to say that they were very surprised by Hannibal appearing when and where he did. However, they knew he was coming, or suspected, because they'd been shadowing him. And in fact, a force under the consul Scipio had almost managed to get hold of Hannibal before he crossed the Alps. This is not, by the way, Scipio Africanus, it's actually his dad. And after missing out on getting hold of Hannibal, he moves back into northern Italy, gets an army together, and he camps at what is modern-day Piacenza, there on the map. Eventually, Scipio does get his hands on Hannibal, albeit accidentally. It's not really a battle, it's more a cavalry skirmish when two units of cavalry essentially bump into each other. And the outcome was a Carthaginian victory, but what's more important is what happens to Scipio. He suffers from quite a nasty wound in the encounter, and that puts him out of action in terms of commanding, which means that it will be the other consul who'll end up commanding what is effectively both consular armies. And Scipio retires back to Piacenza to lick his wounds, and things go badly there. Here we are then with a map with a bit more detail to it. So you can see Piacenza there, which is where Scipio has his camp, and you can see that blue line, that's the river Trebia, of which the battle takes his name. Now the initial problem for Scipio is that he's injured, but there's also a bit of a revolt. Hannibal's sort of wins, or small wins, have obviously got the Celtic mercenaries talking, and the ones in the Roman army have a bit of a revolt. And this causes a lot of headaches for Scipio. And in fact, he moves his camp south to what is near modern-day Rivagaro. And it's here that he meets the other consul, Sempronius Longus. Longus has brought his army up, he's rested them, and he's near where Scipio has his new camp. And Longus is an interesting individual, but he's also an individual who's a product of the Roman political system. And it's now that I come to that dynamic that I mentioned earlier, namely that of time. The Roman political system was largely about achieving as much as you could. It was a sort of supermarket sweep or supermarket trolley dash when you became consul. You had a year to win as much glory, as much fame, and make sure you weren't going to get prosecuted after you'd left office. And what better way to do it than having a Celtic army or Celtic contingent allied with Carthage, the old enemy, the Celts, with the newer enemy, the Carthaginians. Any commander who was able to bring about a decisive victory on near to Roman soil, as it were, would undoubtedly win fame and everlasting glory. So this was a thing in big lights for Longus. You can see the attraction. But the problem was time. So when you think about the Roman political system, you're a consul for 1 year. And it would only be a few weeks or so, thereabouts, before he had to leave, go back to Rome to oversee the consular elections. So he had a short window in which to bring about an engagement, because otherwise he was going to have to leave it to one of the new consuls, or perhaps both of them. And there's no way that he wanted to do that. But Hannibal also had time on his mind, because he was living on, shall we say, borrowed credit from the Celts. They had been impressed with him, undoubtedly. He'd won that victory against the Taurini. He'd done well in a couple of skirmishes against the Romans. But they really wanted to see what he was made of. They wanted to know if he was the big thing, that thing that would give them what they loved doing the most, fighting Rome. And therefore, he was under pressure to bring about an engagement as soon as he could. So you've got two generals who both wanted an engagement, a battle very soon. And of course, it happens. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about what happened in the opening part of that battle, because it's quite a battle.